going to review a section called The Forgiving Dream. It's section 9 in chapter 29, The Awakening. Before we go into the forgiving dream, I just want to talk about some things to emphasize that can't be overemphasized. We probably most of the time try to balance in some way the desire to have a good day or a better day um, with what we now see clearly is the idea there is no way to have a better day. There is no better day. There is no better moment while we're asleep and dreaming. It's uncomfortable to focus on the central message, which emphasizes that we already live in terror, pain, and guilt. The pain being the decision for separation, the willingness to be separate. That is never absent. So we spend some time bargaining for scraps, scraps of comfort, something that can make us approach the day with equanimity. At different levels, we probably are comforted by different things. So, where we might have turned to people or objects in the past for comfort, maybe now we turn to ideas for comfort. Sometimes just thinking there is no world is like a comforting song being sung to us. Whatever it is, they're all illusory. All of the comforters are illusory. So we can talk about maybe the higher level being an idea and the lower level being a form, a figure in the dream. But really, when you're talking about distinctions between illusions, it really loses any kind of hierarchical um, hierarchical uh, establishment. So I want to focus on that terror as being always present. It We tend to focus on it as being the result of an antagonist. Something antagonizes us, and then the fear rises into awareness, as though without that antagonist, there wasn't any fear or terror until it happened. But it was always there. And that helps us to shift our focus from what seems to be outside into what is inside of us. So let's go start with the forgiving dream. The slave of idols is a willing slave, for willing he must be to let himself bow down and worship to what has no life, and seek for power in the powerless. What happened to the Holy Son of God that this could be his wish? To let himself fall lower than the stones upon the ground, and look to idols that they raise him up. Hear then your story and the dream you made, and ask yourself if it be not the truth that you believe that it is not a dream. Jesus is, you know, calling it like he sees it there. We believe it's not a dream. We have let ourselves fall down and reach out to our idols to try to lift ourselves up with our face on the ground. Doesn't always seem that way. It doesn't, not every moment for everybody is in agony of terror, pain, and guilt. It doesn't seem that way. It's what we allow to rise to the surface. And we allow it to rise to the surface, and then we blame something. We blame something outside of us, the idols that we made. It's so much easier to see the idols that we made um, in terms of what we have uh, set up in our little world. Those idols are the people that we blame, circumstances, anything. I think the people is the hardest one. And I think, we don't really see it necessarily initially as freeing them to deny there is life outside of heaven, which means you're denying there is life in your mother and your spouse, in your child, in your pet. There's no life here. And so it can seem like we're taking something it's not something we'd ever say to anybody. I don't see you as being alive because there's no life outside of heaven. And of course, we see them as being alive, but the reason is not because we have any direct evidence. The reason we see them as being alive is because we want to establish what we are, that we are the frail body, the hero in the dream. And in that section on the hero with a dream, he makes the point the body is the central figure in the dreaming of the world. There is no dream without it, nor does it exist without the dream in which it acts as if it were a person to be seen and be believed. It takes the central place in every dream. And so we do hear our story. He's telling us our story. He can't be addressing a body when he's talking about the body, which also shows us that he is speaking past the little self we made and trying to reach through that little self and awaken what it is hiding. Well, we've all put on a mask and we're hiding behind that mask. And we want to be convinced that we stand on a firm foundation, that we know what is real, what is not real. And, the version of enlightenment that appeals to an ego is having all of its needs met. And maybe it's money, maybe it's love, maybe it's power, whatever it is that um, is an idol that we worship. It can be any of those things, but when I hear the slave of idols is a willing slave, you bow down and worship to them, it reminds me of relationships. Because what really hurts us more than relationships? It's the people around us that we turn to raise us up, or it's the people around us that we blame. And this world is a block to the awareness of love's presence, meaning there is no love that is possible in the world, in the illusion. The illusion represents the opposite of love. Where there is love and truth, now there is illusion and hatred. He goes on to say a dream of judgment came into the mind that God created perfect as himself, and in that dream was heaven changed to hell, and God made enemy unto his son. How can God's son awaken from the dream? It is a dream of judgment. So must he judge not, and he will waken. For the dream will seem to last while he is part of it. Judge not, for he who judges will have need of idols, which will hold the judgment off from resting on himself. Nor can he know the self he has condemned. Judge not because you make yourself a part of evil dreams where idols are your, quote, true identity, in your salvation from the judgment laid in terror and in guilt upon yourself. The beauty of this course is in the absolutes. There's no compromising thought. In the dream was heaven changed to hell, and God made enemy unto his son. The dream is hell. He doesn't say sometimes it's hell, sometimes it's all right. When we think it's all right, we're just doubly blind. We've gone so deep into it. Hell is in some way acceptable to us, but it doesn't change. It's just what we feel like focusing on can change. Even if things seem okay in the moment, we'll attribute that okayness to something outside of us. If we can even think of a circumstance within which we would not be okay, it's still hell. The idea of what hell is I sometimes think of as the absence of safety. So no matter what seems to be happening, you're at the mercy of things seem to be outside of your control. We all judge. And therefore, we've made ourselves a part of evil dreams where idols are our true identity. And we kind of vaguely try to make connections here and vaguely form alliances and have our enemies and get upset by the dumb things people do around us that, somehow antagonize us or, trigger us. And then we go about our day sort of judging with wild abandon till we become aware of it. And then we remember judgment offers nothing that we want. There is no, there's no peace associated with it. It is solely to find guilt. And our dedication to finding that guilt just can't be denied. Uh, once we see every second of every minute of every hour, we have to be making judgments. And the most we can hope to do is turn to Jesus and ask for help. And help will come in whatever form it can be accepted in. But that shifting of awareness from what seems to be outside to looking within is so essential, because as long as we maintain the focus on the outside, the forms, figures, what our senses seem to report back to us, we're going to miss the heart of the message. And what will seem to separate us from salvation will seem to be time instead of the tiny gap within which we wrote what the truth is. So we can't empty that gap of the truth we wrote while we insist on looking without. And everybody does it. We get caught up. We get caught up in what is being thought, said, and done here. It can seem so compelling that it hardly seems to be a choice to focus on it. Those tears are glistening like diamonds, and the rubies are the blood. So when you talk, them kind of referencing the two pictures there, to the ego, the frame is very elaborate, has the diamonds and rubies, which on closer inspection are blood and tears. And the frame, the Holy Spirit um, sets the picture in, is 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 not elaborate because the picture shines. So it's content versus form. I'm not really saying it very well. But to the ego, if the form is acceptable, the content must be. But the only thing the ego will ever offer is fear, pain, and guilt, regardless of what the package looks like. That is the sole offering. All figures in the dream are idols made to save you from the dream, yet they are part of what they have been made to save you from. Thus does an idol keep the dream alive and terrible, for who could wish for one unless he were in terror and despair? And this the idol represents, and so its worship is the worship of despair and terror, and the dream from which they come. Judgment is an injustice to God's Son, and it is justice that who judges him will not escape the penalty he laid upon himself within the dream he made. God knows of justice, not of penalty. But in the dream of judgment, you attack and are condemned, and wish to be the slave of idols, which are interposed between your judgment and the penalty it brings. So when we blame someone outside of us for anything, we're trying to avoid the penalty we believe we are due. I stole life from heaven, and I went off on my merry way, autonomous in my dream, and I believe on some level God is coming after me. Death will be the ultimate price that must be paid. But we also dream of a brother who plots our death but plans that it be lingering and slow. This isn't something that we can consciously be aware of, but intellectually we can see it must be true. It must be true that beneath whatever I present to myself in this world, however stable I may seem, however rational I may seem, these are the things that are beneath the surface. If we scratch beneath the surface, seeing a brother as a body is seeing him as an idol. So, in the world's terms, it would be terrible and awful to deny someone life like that. Like the idea that they are puppets would seem cruel in the world's terms. How dare you? What are we really denying them of? Pain? Pain. That's the big thing because everybody clings to their pain. But in order to keep myself, in order to maintain my own identity as an idol, I have to see everybody else as one too. So freeing them from the prison I decided to see my brother in, which is 8 billion people in the world, freeing them and seeing them as merely figures in the dream, puppets, shadows on the wall, is the way to free myself. I only held them there so I could believe they were egos who were guilty and keep the guilt from resting on myself. So while we think we love here, we may believe we love. You know, we may be unwilling to give up those relationships. It is not because the purpose of that is not love. The purpose of that is to maintain our identity. It's so if we could just continuously experience that dissatisfaction to keep us going so we don't stop at that. Well, I could never give up, you know, my family or my friends or people I respect and admire. It's not, it's not a loving thing to cling to that. All figures in the dream are idols made to save you from the dream. So there's two aspects. One is I cannot see them as shadows because I need to maintain my identity. And I cannot see them as shadows because I can't have the guilt and responsibility rest on me. And I suppose one of the main things that, like I said, what are we going to emphasize? We're going to emphasize today. Well, I want to emphasize that the way to love, there is no way to love in the world. It's the opposite of love, it's the opposite of heaven. Seeing love here is one of those, one of the I guess you could say if it's a fundamental block to the awareness of love presence that we know what it is. We don't know, not when we're asleep and dreaming. That is why we're practicing the course. That's why we bother with this book and why we've been bothering with it for decades. We don't know. Back to the forgiving dream. There can be no salvation in the dream as you are dreaming it, for idols must be part of it to save you from what you believe you have accomplished and have done to make you sinful and put out the light within you. Little child, the light is there. You do but dream, and idols are the toys you dream you play with. Who has need of toys but children? They pretend they rule the world and give their toys the power to move about and talk and think and feel and speak for them. Yet everything their toys appear to do is in the minds of those who play with them. But they are eager to forget that they made up the dream in which their toys are real, nor recognize their wishes are their own. Like he really could not be more clear. And, you know, he's clear throughout the whole course. Every word Jesus says in this course is perfectly clear. He calls us little children because he recognizes that we don't just read that and say, oh my gosh, these people aren't even real. They are not there. They can't be there. We will cling to them, sometimes even tighter upon reading what he's saying. and dig our heels in just like little children do. We don't want them to take our toys away. We want them to make the toys better. So we give the people in our dream, the figures, the power to move about and talk and think and feel and speak for us. That is not about the specific things that anybody talks and thinks and feels. It all represents separation happened. Separation is real. It's Jesus who's lying to us in his course. Everything our toys, the people, appear to do is in the mind of those who play with them. And then we forget we made up the dream, that it's all made up, and we think the toys are real. And we don't think that we chose separation. I think came into a world. It wasn't our fault. Nothing's ever our fault. So it's really such an elaborate plan. um, just like the truth is simple, illusion is very complex. It's because it's its opposite. There's so much complexity. There's so much complexity in the body, complexity in the world. Conflict takes a million different forms. Sometimes it's just brutal and cruel. Sometimes the conflict is barely noticed. Paragraph 5. Nightmares are childish dreams. The toys have turned against the child who thought he made them real. Yet can a dream attack? Or can a toy grow large and dangerous and fierce and wild? This does the child believe because he fears his thoughts and gives them to the toys instead. And their reality becomes his own, because they seem to save him from his thoughts. Yet do they keep his thoughts alive and real, but seen outside himself, where they can turn against him for his treachery to them. He thinks he needs them that he may escape his thoughts, because he thinks the thoughts are real. And so he makes of anything a toy to make his world remain outside himself and play that he is but a part of it. We can really imagine um, a child, watching a child play with their toys and have the toys turn against each other. We can see that happening. We do see that happening with children. And sometimes wonder, oh, where did that thought come from? But we are those children to Jesus. He sees us the same way we see a 4-year-old playing with toys, except we're even younger to him. We barely communicate because we seemingly are completely entirely tied to symbols in order to communicate at all. So our communication is like a baby's, he says at one point. And it's not to be taken as an insult. I think we need that recognition before we can ever start in the whole process, in the instant to instant, to empty the tiny gap of what we believe the truth is. Because we think we're so rational and smart that um, it's difficult to absorb how little we do know. We have these words on a page and they mean something to us. The words actually mean something in our world. So within our dream, these symbols appeared and seemed to awaken something within us. And we will always seem to be egos. So there's that surface level. I can keep looking outside, becoming completely, uh, enamored with what's happening outside, what seems to be happening outside of me. My body, somebody else's body, those bodies over there. I hate them. I love them. I want to embrace them. Oh, I want them to go away. I want them to leave me alone. But these other things over here I like. We can just stay wrapped up in that loop. And, it's no big deal. The end is certain. We will choose again. But choosing separation is um, is not something that we seem to have control over. We can talk all we want. Anybody could say, "Oh, I had an experience of Jesus. I had an experience of light. Oh, I don't see this world as real anymore." Things like that. It doesn't matter because every single thing that is thought, said, or done, or perceived at all, it's all part of the illusion. There's no hierarchy of illusion. Nothing can be said or done or thought that is better than something else. So we talk about the ladder and going up the ladder. We talk about deeper thoughts and the shallow surface of just focusing on appearances only and how appearances deceive. But all of it is part of the dream. All of it needs to be transcended. So when we walk with Jesus, when we look through Jesus's eyes, we see no distinctions between those things. It's only when we embrace our ego and really want to, roll around in the mud with it that those things become real and important. You know, so we don't condemn, we can't condemn anything anyone, including ourselves, thinks, says, or does. It's just if we can understand, can hear these words and understand them, we're like children playing with toys. There is no real conflict. Conflict isn't real. We can use the world, we can use the dream to prove conflict's real, but it will never be real. Not one note in heaven's song will ever be missed. And so it kind of goes back in my mind to Jesus's absolutes. You know, he talks in absolutes. And that is the only way to really elevate our minds beyond the appearances, and pierce the veil of forgetfulness, because he has reached us with these words. We know what it means to say a child plays with toys. That is meaningful to us. It's not as meaningful to say I am that child and everything and I'm scattered around my world as a toy. um, but I understand what he's saying. I really like to use that analogy, where um, if you are talking to someone who is hallucinating that they see a purple elephant, okay, then they turn to you and they say, "What do I do? What should I do when I'm faced with this?" And nothing is there at all. Nothing's there. So at first, you might say something comforting. "You know what? I studied this animal, and this animal can't hurt you. This purple elephant's not going to trample you. You're okay." Right? Just remind the person that they're okay. They might hallucinate that they got hurt. And then you may pretend that you're helping them with the pain. So that's how I imagine Jesus. When he reaches us in the beginning, we're like, "Where do I go? What do I do? What do I say?" And then when we dream, he answers those questions. It's just part of a larger dream. If we stay there, it's part of a larger dream of hopelessness. So we can't really stay at that level. We can't really be content with navigating the world better. Like Jesus is just the person I turn to for a bit of trifling advice for problems here. And I know there are very big problems. Most of us have very big problems. The older you get, the bigger your problems get. And you can't believe you even called other things problems when you were younger. Um, So, yeah, we have things that seem very, very serious here, very, very capable of hurting us, of causing pain. And Jesus is trying to teach us the cause of that pain is not outside of us. No matter how compelling it seems, no matter how real it seems, it will never be anything more than a dream. Paragraph 7, the forgiving dream. The real world still is but a dream. except the figures have been changed. They are not seen as idols which betray. It is a dream in which no one is used to substitute for something else, nor interposed between the thoughts the mind conceives and what it sees. No one is used for something he is not, for childish things have all been put away, and what was once a dream of judgment now has changed into a dream where all is joy, because that is the purpose that it has. Only forgiving dreams can enter here, for time is almost over, and the forms that enter in the dream are now perceived as brothers, not in judgment, but in love. The real world is the goal. It's the sixth stage. It's where learning is consolidated, where all judgment has been laid aside. So the figures have been changed. They haven't changed in appearance. They're just not seen as idols. We haven't projected an ego into them and have them represent to us the separation's real, have them represent to us the idea that God is dead, have us fear them because we believe they will betray us. No one is used to substitute for something else. Well, the only substitute that can even be made is hell for heaven. It could also be said as hatred for love. No one is used for something he is not. So if we take a telephone and we want that telephone, we want to get something from it, not just use it as a communication device, it will seem to fail us. Like, I want that telephone to love me. Give me the love that I want. Well, a telephone can't do that. It's a communication device. So in the world, kind of like the highest way within the dream we can see bodies are as communication devices, where we receive messages and we interpret those messages. But there's no life. There's no life in a form, in a symbol, in a tool, in a communication device. There's no life inside of it. Childish things have all been put away. The forms that enter in the dream are now perceived as brothers, not in judgment, but in love. In order to perceive brothers in the dream, you would have to focus on content and not form. Brothers are not forms. Brothers are not idols. Brothers are not egos. So brothers are not separated individual selves. And in truth, there are no brothers. There's truth and there's illusion. Forgiving dreams have little need to last. They are not made to separate the mind from what it thinks. They do not seek to prove the dream is being dreamed by someone else. And in these dreams, a melody is heard that everyone remembers, though he has not heard it since before all time began. Forgiveness, once complete, brings timelessness so close the song of heaven can be heard, not with the ears, but with the holiness that never left the altar, that abides forever deep within the Son of God. And when he hears this song again, he knows he never heard it not. And where is time when dreams of judgment have been put away? Forgiving dreams have little need to last. They do not seek to prove the dream is being dreamed by someone else. When he says everyone remembers, we need to keep in mind so we don't harbor some, errant thought of hatred. There is no everyone. There is only non-duality. So you don't call non-duality, you don't call oneness everyone. He uses that here again to address content versus form. If the content is love, that love is everywhere at all times. There is no time, place, or state where it's absent. That's everyone. If you don't see that, then you see disunity, conflict, different individual egos wandering the earth, forever in conflict. Forgiveness, once complete, brings timelessness so close the song of heaven can be heard. So forgiveness being complete is the real world. It is the laying aside of all judgment. It is seeing all things as the same, all forms as the same. And the forms are everything that you perceive and the thoughts that you think as a separated individual self. Um, when all of it is forgiven, all of it is transcended, then you have the real world and God takes the final step. So this is not about the way things appear in the dream. It is not about a feel good moment where my thoughts fall in line with your thoughts and those everything that we ever chased in the dream, all those the comforting things that we chased in the dream, like just we try to strike bargains so that we can have a feel good moment. A feel good moment does not interest me at all. And I mean, in the broader sense, of course, um, we all appear to do. The only thing we appear to do is what will comfort us, what will get our needs met. We're just like totally self obsessed. Everybody who walks the earth is completely self obsessed. And when they seem to be selfless, that's because the way their needs are playing out is they need to appear selfless to be okay. So it's all just self absorption and um, getting either psychological, physical, spiritual, social, educational needs met. So that's all anybody's ever going to appear to do. So don't even bother trying to, paint a picture around here that's going to look like something that represents forgiveness being complete because everything that's perceived has to be transcended. We stand outside of, we stand above the battleground with Jesus. We don't try to make the battleground look prettier, look nicer. And, as a practical matter, of course, when we're feeling, you know, psychologically, physically good, we don't deprive ourselves of the good feeling either by saying, don't forget, you're in terror and pain because you believe you're here. It's not really about, arguing with yourself. That just is another way of proving conflict's real. That's the way the ego will take and twist what Jesus has done to try to uh, make hell even worse. Like, so the ego's range is suspiciousness and viciousness. And in truth, that has no meaning. But here, there are definitely degrees of pain that we believe we perceive. So to rise above the battleground is not to deny what seems to be happening here. It's to deny that it's the cause of my experience. The cause of my experience is my willingness to be separate, no matter what it looks like here. That we can do. We don't have to deny degrees of pain, just the cause of the cause of the experience. Um, okay. Paragraph 9. Whenever you feel fear in any form, and you are fearful, if you do not feel a deep content, a certainty of help, a calm assurance heaven goes with you, be sure you made an idol and believe it will betray you. For beneath your hope that it will save you lie the guilt and pain of self betrayal and uncertainty, so deep and bitter that the dream cannot conceal completely all your sense of doom. Your self betrayal must result in fear, for fear is judgment, leading surely to the frantic search for idols and for death. Yeah, that is what the dream offers us. That is what our willingness to be separate offers us. Being very fearful and feeling a sense of self betrayal. I don't think that we, during a frantic search for idols and for death, were necessarily aware of that. Because in this world, we have all the witnesses we need to support and uphold our wish for littleness, our wish for the dream. So here in the dream, it really is just between you and the truth in you. The Course is not talking to the little self that we think we made, the little self that is fearful. Fear is the stranger here. We aren't what we think we are. We are not what we have allowed into awareness, because what we have not allowed into awareness is the truth. And until we do allow it, that's what we're left with: fear and deep and bitter uncertainty. Forgiving dreams remind you that you live in safety and have not attacked yourself. So do your childish terrors melt away, and dreams become a sign that you have made a new beginning, not another try to worship idols and to keep attack. Forgiving dreams are kind to everyone who figures in the dream, and so they bring the dreamer full release from dreams of fear. He does not fear his judgment, for he has judged no one, nor has he sought to be released through judgment from what judgment must impose. And all the while, he is remembering what he forgot when judgment seemed to be the way to save him from its penalty. Okay, forgiving dreams are kind to everyone who figures in the dream. We think we understand terms like kindness and gentleness and those kinds of things. But we think about them in terms of setting them in an earthly frame. What does this have to look like? So that's when we kind of turn to Jesus, the Holy Spirit, and ask for a bit of trifling advice. Because when we say things like, oh, I want to help this person, what should I do to help this person who I see is suffering? Right? That's kind of a double blind. Number one, we don't truly care what is happening to anyone else but ourselves. So our self-concept, the self-concept we want to try to hold on to, is our face of innocence, right? So we cling to that face of innocence and we set up conditions for its maintenance. Well, it's not really very kind and doesn't seem innocent if you don't care about somebody else's suffering. That seems very hateful. And then you'd have to say, your self-concept would feel attacked by that. So we hold on to our face of innocence by putting it out there that we are caring and we want to help somebody, right? Well, if we're not going to be willing to say hatred is the ego thought system. The manifestation of the ego thought system is 100% hatred. It is the only game in town. There is no other game. There is no love here because there is no love here that is like God's. There is no love here that we can really embrace. We don't feel loved enough and we don't feel like we give enough love because all of it here is designed to replace the love of God, the love of heaven, the truth in us, our true identity. It is the substitute. We're looking for that substitute to fill that void because in heaven, there is no time, space, or place where God is absent, where love is absent. And here, there's only a place where love is absent. So we feel this never ending thirst and it manifests itself in bodily needs. I'm hungry. I'm thirsty. What are we hungry and thirsty for? What we threw away. But we look outside of ourselves and we fill ourselves up with all the substitutes, all of our idols. Everything's an idol. Every form and figure and symbol in the dream is an idol, made to replace the love we think we threw away, in which we believe we are never getting back. Our future is hell or oblivion. And we thread our timid way through this whole thing. So it is not a loving thing. What we believe is loving here is not the love that is heaven's love, is God's love, is the truth. It's the opposite of that. And special love and special hate are the same because they will always limit and they will always be conditional. And we can't offer each other or ourselves even a tiny thimble of what the truth is because we blocked its awareness. We blocked ourselves from it coming into awareness. So the major point that I want to make and talk about right now is the recognition that there is no love within the dream because it's been denied, not because we did anything real to it. It's just been denied. So if you think about it, if we understand what he's saying to us here, how there is no love in this world, in the ego, 100% hatred, murder. It's a thought of murder made real and given living form, and that is what we exist in. It can never be comfortable. Okay, if we believe Jesus, if we believe what he's saying in his course, then we would have to acknowledge that what he's saying is we don't care about the others. We care about maintaining our identity at any cost. Our face of innocence requires us to present to ourselves thoughts and actions, words that we think are necessary for our self-concept, not to feel attacked. Anything outside of you that demands your attention, that demands your care, that asks something from you on any level, you must hate. It literally appears to be the reason why you can't be at peace. You have to deal with that thing. So we say we love the people that we care for, people we feel responsible for, people that we feel a desire to help. You know, that's so much mishmash. It really is. Oddly enough, in recognizing that we cannot love here, that the people that we seem to want to help are the ones that on some level we feel um, hatred for. If I didn't see that person, I could be at peace. Or I see someone who seems to be at peace and I think they stole it from me and I feel something different. I'm only focusing on the ones that we seem to love. Yes, egos seem to love each other. And the face of innocence can be the hardest thing to really look at and transcend. Now, it's in that section on self concept versus self. He says something like, what does it matter the self concept you have if you still perceive a self that interacts with evil things? So there's nothing to be gained. There's truly nothing to be gained from a face of innocence. I think there's a false sense of safety that goes along with it, in the sense that maybe you won't be attacked, but we can see that that's not even true. Here, there's all kinds of conflict. We don't know where it's going to pop up next. So when we say forgiving dreams are kind to everyone who figures in the dream, that has nothing to do with what happens in form. That is content only. If I release everyone in this world from my belief and desire to see them as a bunch of egos, if I withdraw that and see them as figures and forms, that is the forgiving dream. Looking and waiting and quietly doing nothing. Now, maybe that's at the level of the mind. Maybe at the level of the body, it will seem like I tried to help everybody all the time. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like. That is no longer the focus. What seems to be happening in the shadow world is no longer the focus. Forgiveness gently pulls us back out of that, above the battleground, where we can see it from a different vantage point and see there's no life there. While our focus is on it, we can't see that there's no life there. We will feel a sense of responsibility, um, not for the dream itself and not necessarily for our own experience, but we will feel like we must interact at that level and stay focused on seeing 8 billion people. The judgment, the judgment is not really, I love you, I hate you, I condemn you, um, I think you're nice, I think you're mean. The judgment is really about, what are you? What are you? We're just looking in a mirror at what we believe we are. And the only way to be free is to free everybody else. Now, when we say we go together, you and I, we will share in heaven together or not at all, we're not talking to bodies. We're always interacting with ourselves. That's all that we can do. But it will never matter what happens in a dream to truth. It matters while we're asleep and dreaming. And like Jesus said, if you can be hurt by anything, you see your own concealed desire to kill. If you can be hurt by anything, you see your concealed desire to kill. That's the hatred. That's what we need to acknowledge and recognize, to move at all on this path. You know, the workbook is a bunch of level 1 statements, and it's the text where you get deep into the heart of what it is we made, what it is we believe, the laws of chaos, the war against ourselves. That is what we look at when we look and wait. That is what we don't judge. So we don't look at it in order to berate ourselves. That's what the ego would do. If we're fighting ourselves, we know we've latched on to our egos. No, the truth in us is not fighting anything. The truth is saying, this is the opposite of what you really are. There's nothing to fight against. Illusion can only be one thing: hell, because it's the opposite of heaven. It's so simple, and yet, you know, it's just not enough to tell us once, hey, it's a dream and none of it's real. I really like the hero of the dream because of how fundamental it gets. The body is the central figure in the dreaming of the world. It's not about the characteristics of that body, all the things that we focus on when we're just right up close on it and we don't rise above the battleground. We're just we're just in the thick of it, embracing it, cherishing our hatred, calling it love, denying what we made of ourselves, and seeing ourselves as, you know, a good person kind of in a wicked world. Well, I'd never hurt a fly. To see anybody as a body is murder. If I believe my brother's a body, that is murder. That's what Jesus is trying to teach us. And that's what we want to learn. Because it is the shortcut. That's the shortcut. And that's why Ken focused on it. Ken focused on those parts. And looking at them is the way. So what are we when we believe we're an ego? We believe we're murderers. And despite how lovely our face of innocence may seem to be to us, or how anyone responds to it in the world, we are waiting to throw someone off a precipice. The sin our eyes behold in them and love to look upon It saw first in ourselves and looks on still with glee. Those are the words he uses. I mean, he's talking about us. I think I get very frustrated and why I keep doing this. It's for myself, obviously. This is what I want to talk about. Um, but it's because I really wonder, is anybody paying attention to that? It's not that I'm opposed to, some lighthearted banter. I guess I'm just not interested in it. I got lighthearted banter in my own life. I like to tell jokes in my own life. Boy, if you're going to be in a classroom where you're focusing on the message of A Course in Miracles and what the book is saying, it's saying something. It's saying something. And it moves me, and it moves me to talk about it. And I guess now I can't stop talking about it. I don't even really think I have an audience. I guess it's just me and Jesus. But I really do want to do the Hero of the Dream sometime. It's just so remarkable. Like, does any other book talk like that? Okay, I know there's other non-dual paths, but um I'm just going to I'm going to read the whole first paragraph of The Hero of the Dream from chapter 27. The body is the central figure in the dreaming of the world. There is no dream without it, nor does it exist without the dream in which it acts as if it were a person, to be seen and be believed. It takes the central place in every dream, which tells the story of how it was made by other bodies, born into the world outside the body, lives a little while and dies, to be united in the dust with other bodies dying like itself. In the brief time allotted it to live, it seeks for other bodies as its friends and enemies. Its safety is its main concern. Its comfort is its guiding rule. It tries to look for pleasure and avoid the things that would be hurtful. Above all, it tries to teach itself its pains and joys are different and can be told apart. Is he talking to us? The ones who believe they're the body? When he talks about the hero of the dream, he's talking past us. He's talking past us to what is within us that recognizes we are not a body. Because we don't recognize that. We just make all kinds of adjustments to try to make this course fit into something we can comprehend. But it's so much more. We are a person to be seen and be believed. We're the person he's talking about. The dream doesn't exist, nor does it exist without the dream in which it acts as if it were a person. He's telling me I'm acting as if I'm a person. I tell the story of how I was made by other bodies, born into the world outside the body. I'll live a little while and I'll die. In any interpretation of this course that preserves that world, that what he is saying right here cannot get us home because he's already describing it. The brief time allotted it to live, a life so soon cut short it might as well have never been. The littleness we have to embrace the murder, hatred, pain, fear, and guilt. Just that littleness can make us, can shine a light. I think it shines a light. Be not content with nothing. And it's all nothing. All of it. There's just nothing to desire. There's nothing to have an investment in. The dream, I have to read the next one too. The dreaming of the world takes many forms because the body seeks in many ways to prove it is autonomous and real. We seek in many ways to prove we are autonomous and real. We are hearing our story. It puts things on itself that it has bought with little metal discs or paper strips the world proclaims as valuable and real. It works to get them doing senseless things and tosses them away for senseless things it does not need and does not even want. It hires other bodies that they may protect it and collect more senseless things that it can call its own. It looks about for special bodies that can share its dream. Sometimes it dreams it is a conqueror of bodies weaker than itself, but in some phases of the dream, it is the slave of bodies that would hurt and torture it. The body's serial adventures from the time of birth to dying are the theme of every dream the world has ever had. The hero of this dream will never change, nor will its purpose. Though the dream itself takes many forms and seems to show a great variety of places and events wherein its quote hero finds itself, the dream has but one purpose, taught in many ways. This single lesson does it try to teach again and still again and yet once more, that it is cause and not effect, and you are its effect and cannot be its cause. Thus you are not the dreamer but the dream. And so you wander idly in and out of places and events that it contrives. That this is all the body does is true, for it is but a figure in a dream. But who reacts to figures in a dream unless he sees them as if they were real? It's so easy at times to completely, entirely forget what we're really doing when we're practicing forgiveness. When we're practicing forgiveness, we are seeing what he is saying, returning the dream we gave away unto the dreamer. We perceive the dream as separate from ourselves and done to us. So that littleness of wandering idly in and out of places the mind contrives is what we reject. That cannot be the truth. It cannot be the truth in us. If it's the truth in us, then God is cruel. If it's the truth in us, maybe there is no God. So I won't go much into that because I think if you've made it this far, you've already had an experience that proves the truth of it to you. So we all have to have an experience to remove all doubt. So I'm guessing if you're listening, you've had an experience that removes all doubt, or you will, because you've heard the words, you've read the words, and they moved you, and you saw in them your whole way out. This is the way out, the road to awakening, the road to salvation. We are not bodies. We are free. We are as God created us. That is the truth. And so we're just working out the atonement now. It can seem to take a long time. But the thing that I try to keep in mind is perceiving it as a tiny gap and not time. Look at it as space and not time. Because your brother, or the truth that walks with you, within you, that is now awakened, will lead you back. It will lead you out of the nothingness that we made. The nothingness in a form that seems like something. So now we're hopeful. Now we have the hope. We can't have that hope as long as we're playing the pretend game. The pretend game that we know what love is, that we know what kindness is, that we can set those things in earthly frames and maintain their meaning. We can't set love in an earthly frame and have it be everything that it is. What you are can't be set in an earthly frame. There is nothing that can represent everything. Everything is everything. There's no need for a sign or a symbol. For now, we do need our course. We do need the signs and symbols to lead us out, to lead us beyond them. So although it's all illusion, some illusions don't foster and perpetuate more illusions. And the truth in you can be trusted. It knows how to lead you. It knows when to give you a message, It knows what help can be received. It is, the Song of Prayer says, do not think he has, um, that your cries of agony have gone unheard. We can have faith. We can have faith in this message. And we will know, um, we will see it and believe it because we want it to be true, that nothing outside of us ever had the power to take the peace of God away from us. It never did. My experience was never connected to a dream, was never connected to a shadow. Amen. Thank you for listening.